Hi, everyone. I'm Veena, the CEO of Beautifully Empower Coaching Consulting and host of Voices of Impact. So I actually help visionary CEOs or soulpreneurs align identity and who they are with their presence and strategy. So a very conscious strategy. So they create purpose, impact, financial freedom, and time freedom simultaneously. So they live life and careers that they truly deserve, right? They leap through, energetics, through nervous system regulation, right? So I created Voices of Impact, which is something that just was born 2 months ago. And it's really for a platform for women and men. I just started as a podcast, but in the past 2 months, I've been getting so many amazing guests and had great conversations and a lot of compliments. So it's really a platform, evolved into a platform for women and men, conscious women and men who to own their voice, stand in their truth, and lead from who they really are, not who they've been conditioned to be, right? So I'm starting these mini live episodes solo. So I do invite guests to kind of share their stories, but I'm also doing this mini live episodes because I want to share real stories of my own life and how I went from rock bottom, underdog, to the thriving CEO, leader, daughter, friend in all areas, right? Following these certain traits of being a leader, it's been a tremendous amount of growth and inner work, but I'm grateful for every single moment. Yeah, so basically just micro reflections, lessons I've lived, the things we don't always say out loud, but should. And there were years that I thought I was being professional and polite. I was taught to be the good girl in my family. I was raised in a very conservative household, yet it was a little toxic. But in reality, I was actually shrinking. I felt I was in a cage, right? So I wasn't supposed to speak up, say things I wanted to say. I realized I thought that's who I was, but in reality, I'm a rebel. I'm a trailblazer. I'm a change maker. And it took a while for me to become the strong woman that I'm meant to be. So I was shrinking in meetings. I was shrinking in, negotiating my worth and my salary. Shrinking in relationships, right? I always was the over giver, didn't know what I was worth. I would always be authentic and, giving unconditional love. And I thought that's what I'm supposed to get in return, right? But just dimming my life. And that's what was happening this whole entire time. And I thought hey, maybe I'm doing great. I didn't even know I was selling for less, right? And the wild part is it didn't look dramatic externally. It looked like I was just a responsible girl that I was taught to be in a South Asian household. It looked strategic. It looked mature. It's gonna, this is how life is. It's a male dominated world. That's how that's how women were, right? So, but underneath all of it I realized was, just reprogramming and conditioning and expectations of me. I lived a dual identity of being, born and raised here with the Indian conditioning of all of it. And I realized that I had to overcome some fears. Fear of being misunderstood was something that was huge that stayed with me for so long. I was always misunderstood because I was a rebel. I don't follow the rules. And if I was different or I didn't follow the rules, I was too loud or rebellious, immediately I was misunderstood. Like, something's wrong with this girl, right? Fear of being judged, fear of being too much. I would speak up, I would ask questions, people call me difficult, right? Because I was, being the alpha female, right? And I'd question everything, right? Because I was never following the linear path in life. And today, I want to talk about that because so many high achieving women aren't lacking confidence. It's not about capabilities. It's just they're over managing perception. So let me give you real examples. Like I said, I stayed silent in meetings. Even when I had the clear strategy in the room, I know what I was talking about. I knew what I brought to the table, a room full of Fortune 500 people, because I didn't want to be seen as too assertive. At times, even recently, I was in rooms where I was a little too assertive. Immediately, I was kind of called out, right? And perceived as being as too strong or being as too difficult. And it just didn't align, and that's okay. But this whole entire time, I thought it was me, right? But I realized, like, why am I dimming my light? I'm just in the wrong room, right? And if it's not something that you can tolerate, then maybe it's not for me, right? And or you don't see my potential, right? And I accepted compensation that didn't match my contribution because I tend to overgive and be okay with it and settling for less. And I realized I have to assert myself for the what I deserve. And I kind of hid myself. I didn't want to be difficult. My parents told me not to do this. What would people think? I over-prepared, I over-delivered just to prove I deserved a seat at the table. I'm just kind of downplaying my wins, right? Like it was a team effort or it wasn't that big of a deal. Like this is normal, like, and that's not humility. I was just protecting myself. That's self-protection. I did in relationships many times because of my toxic household and I attracted those things as well, emotionally unavailable. I thought it was just, this is just bare minimum. I guess this is what I deserve. And I realized, no, it's not, right? I should deserve to be a queen, right? I deserve to live and have a relationship or a career what I deserve because I bring so much to the table, and that eroded my confidence. It was just me softening boundaries. I did not set boundaries until now, right? And that was a lesson I had to learn. I tolerated misalignment because I called it patience. I was calling it like that's what life is supposed to look like, right? That's what I was taught. But technically it was fear. And I had to overcome those fears and those limiting beliefs and the conditioning. And I had to unlearn those things. So what I learned is every time you shrink yourself to make others comfortable, you slowly disconnect from your own power. Dimming doesn't just protect you, but it costs you, right? It costs confidence. It costs clarity, alignment. It costs energy. Like I've been drained my whole life doing this, being in rooms that I did not belong and I couldn't be fully myself. The shift didn't happen when I decided to be louder. Right. It happened when I decided to be honest with myself, like who I am, I self-reflected, honest about what I wanted, honest about what no longer fit, what wasn't aligned. I always was attached to the outcome. I was always attached like, hey, this is just playing it safe, playing it small. That's what I'm used to do. Like this is like the new norm. But in reality, I was very settling for less. And now I just feel into it. And if I don't feel like I can be myself, I just immediately say no if it's misaligned. And I can't tell you how much I'm so happy to say no to the things that don't align because a better one came in, a more aligned one came in. The more I said no to things that didn't serve me. And honest about the fact that shrinking was costing me self-trust. So all these fears were in my subconscious. And of course, as a mindset coach as well, I had to reframe those subconscious fears. And as I'm speaking, I'm still doing this. So the more you shift and do that reprogramming, that's how you overcome your blocks. So I'm going to speak to that in a different episode. Because here's the truth. Every time you shrink to be accepted, you teach people how to treat you. Every time you dilute your standards and you don't stick to those standards, you reinforce them. And every time you override your intuition and you think of logic and this is how the world is supposed to be, your self-trust weakens. So that was the real cost, not the job, not the title. To everyone out there, it has nothing to do with you and your capabilities. So I want you to be unapologetic about who you are, what you bring to the table. So going into that different episode of identity war, shifting who you are, understanding what are your strengths, what's your why are you here, what do you mean to do? Being unapologetic doesn't mean you have to be aggressive. And these are just labels that people put on us, but it's not really like you're aggressive, right? It's not about being louder than anyone else. It's just being aligned, right? So basically, the biggest shift happened for me when I realized that if I'm building something meaningful, like a company or platform, like Voices of Impact, a life, it has to be rooted in my values. So I'm very value-led. I do walk my talk. I practice what I preach. I see a lot of people out there on LinkedIn or anywhere where they say they're a true leader, but I've talked to so many and it's not rooted in values or authentic leadership. I'm not rooted in values or approval, not fear, right? So that's when I stopped apologizing for being ambitious. Yes, I'm a go-getter. I'm ambitious. I'll go after what I want. But at the same time, there's a quiet confidence and it's coming from my why. And that's my mission, right? I'm a mission-driven entrepreneur, soulpreneur, right? So I stopped editing my voice I owned my voice throughout this whole journey. I've, gone through a lot in my professional journey, 4 career transitions from unemployment to being a top leader, right? So a very huge leadership evolution, which I'll get to that in another episode, and a personal growth journey from rock bottom to having nothing, doing so much of inner work on an everyday basis, identity to work, and to being unapologetic right now. So I really am unapologetic about who I am. And that doesn't mean I'm loud for the sake of being loud, but it means I'm aligned, grounded, and clear. And you can be both powerful and soft and a go getter. And when you lead from that place, your nervous system feels safer. Your decisions get cleaner, your no's get stronger. And it took me a while to get to this level because I didn't have a role model growing up. And I can speak to all the South Asians or anyone out there. We didn't have role models growing up. So I had to learn the hard way everything. Nothing ever came easy to me. I mean, things would like work and then fall apart. So that's how I became stronger. Because of these lessons, I would get tested all the time. I mean, the divine tested me, but at the same time, I'd realize that I needed this because it made me into a very strong person today. And I still say no to things, and I don't apologize for it if it's not aligned, right? And it takes a lot of courage to get there. It takes a lot of work to get there. So all I want to say is please don't dim your light in any area of your life, your career, relationships, your work, your leadership. I want you to reflect on this today. Where are you shrinking to stay accepted? Why do you want that acceptance from someone? Why do you want that approval from someone? And what would change if you had stopped? Right? And that's why I started Voices of Impact. And that's why it was born, right? So basically, Voices of Impact is not just a podcast. It's really a platform for soulpreneurs, visionary leaders to own their voice and power, to lead fearlessly just like I did, and boldly in many ways that may have not felt safe or supported to do before, right? It's really about embracing your authentic, unique perspective and communicating it, articulating with confidence, regardless of what people say, people judge, conditioning, external validation, right? It's really a curated space for leaders to think critically, lead consciously. I understand that influence today requires not just visibility, but really requires presence and truly knowing yourself. So I had to become that role model for others, right? So I had to trust that perspective. And I realized that now I don't lead from permission, I lead from alignment, right? So this is a platform just like how I used my God-given gifts and putting my voice out there and owning it. This platform is for leaders to share their message and their wisdom, right? So leaders who are self-aware, values-led, and actively shaping the future, because that is my legacy, to give that ripple effect and to share this with the world. It's a platform where women and men don't have to shrink, a space where you can show up fully, share your truth, and expand your influence. So I know what it feels like, right? I just shared that, and I don't want anyone to go through this. It's a generational thing that I'm breaking the glass ceiling, the stereotyping, the generational trauma. And that's what I'm here to do. That's my mission. That's my why. And I want you to do the same, right? I invite you to do the same, to share your story, sharing bright, inspire others. So where you're expanding. If this resonated, follow along, because I'll be doing more of these mini reflections and going deeper into voice, leadership, nervous system regulation, and values-based decision making. And maybe this is your season, just like me, to stop playing small. Not becoming louder. This has nothing about becoming or doing more. It's about becoming more yourself, right? Showing up authentically when others are telling you not to. Step into your full power by becoming honest, And that's what Voices of Impact is all about, creating spaces where you can really expand. So if you want to share your story and shine bright on this platform and stage, I'm inviting guests to Voices of Impact to bring your voice, your wisdom, and your experience to this platform. So this is your space to inspire, lead, and to be seen unapologetically, right? So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or DM me if you're ready to step into the room that can hold you. And this is a complete safe space, and I'll be sharing more about my stories in the upcoming episodes. And remember, your voice isn't too much. It's necessary, it's beautiful, and it's powerful.